Hello, I thought I'd try recording a video for you guys going through a deck profile. So, as some of you might have seen on Twitter, I've been cooking up Palkia Valiant during the working out the deck phase of this new format. And about 6th of November, I messaged my boy Mateus, Polish superstar, the man who comes up with the best decks, in my opinion. And I asked him, what do you think of this deck? And he was like, do you know what? You might be onto something. And if you get that kind of validation from those top players, it's always great to then really put your mind into something. And I tried so many different decks around Palkia, around Arceus, around the Valiant. And I really came to the conclusion that Valiant doesn't need to be a 4 of in a deck to work. It can be done as like a little damage mod in certain other decks. And I tried it at first with Arceus, but it just made it too clunky because you need so many switch outs. And the fact that you've got that Melony plus the Star Portal package with the Palkia, it really opens up a lot of options. And I really don't think this is the most optimal list. I think someone smarter than me will come away from this and hopefully be able to build it into something better. But of course, it is a water type, so we do have the unfortunate circumstance that we have that lightning weakness down in the bottom corner. So we do have to worry about that. Oh my goodness. First time I've gone full screen like this. Let's go like this. This will be easier. Yeah, you do have to worry about the lightning weakness because Miraidon just doing so well at LAIC. It's definitely a target for you, and it makes the Miraidon matchup a lot tougher to pull off. But of course, you have the 2 Palkias to attack with. Normally, you try and set up at least one of them, normally 2 early on. Especially if you're going first and you can't get that first turn attack off, you'll normally put 2 Palkia down if you can. Otherwise, the Suicune will come out if you're going second. Maybe the Medicham if you're going to be able to get a loop play off. Now, you've got the 2 Valiant. Typically, you'll only ever have 1 in play, sometimes 0, depending on the matchup. But you normally just use it as that little 20 damage modifier to really help Palkia reach those numbers, especially when you're playing against good players who are very good at playing around the Subspace Swell or the Blizzard Rondo. You're going to want to try and use that 20 damage to try and bring stuff into range or set stuff up in the future, especially when there's things like Charms on Miraidons or the Ancient Booster when they're on the Roaring Moon. And then you've got a few other options here. So we've got Squawk and Lumineon, of course, for the consistency. Squawk is not always needed, but I'd say about like 80% of the time you're going to be Squawk and Seizing. I've actually had a few times where you put the Squawk and Seize down, but because you end up drawing into such good cards, which you can't get rid of, you just don't end up doing it, even if it's in play. And those cards are your supporters and some of your Pokemon. But of course, you have Super Rod and Pal Pad in the deck to try and be able to work around that. I've gone for 2 Super Rod. I tried 1. It just didn't feel like enough, especially as endgame you want to recycle certain Pokemon and also sometimes the energy, because the energy is so key to your draw. So going back to the Pokemon, Greninja, of course, is a great attacker into the little things. Manaphy is played a lot, and you have to play around that. I've thought about cancelling Clone, but I really don't think that's optimal because you can't find it when you need it. You have to end up drawing into it, which would just be too niche to find both cancelling Clone and a Gust in the same turn. And Lumineon is actually quite unique in this deck because its attack is very good into the Lost Box. I try and put Lumineon down turn 1 of the game to even get the supporter, or if I'm going second, even put it down and don't attack with it, just to try and soak up that early Cramorant attack. And then the Aqua return works really nicely with the Valiant because it allows you to get another Iron Valiant paying off in the same turn. And I actually did this in the final of the Cup at Lowestoft where I was against Gardevoir. They had a Manaphy on the bench that I wanted to try and ping up as much as possible, but of course you only have so many switch outs in the deck. So I switched into a Valiant, retreated into a Lumineon, Aqua returned into the active for the knockout, put the next Iron Valiant up and got another ping on the Manaphy, putting it into much closer range to get the loop off or just ping it out of the game for a Greninja attack later on. And then, of course, Yoga Loop, really important, especially against 60 HP Pokemon. You are very good at punishing 60 HP variants of Pokemon. So Bidoofs, Pidgeys, Charmanders, Friggies, and in fact with Friggies, it's one of the reasons why if they've got 60 HP Friggies, this is one of the freest matchups. Xianpao, even with Iron Hands, is incredibly easy for you because you can just disrupt them from ever getting a Baxcalibur into play, whether it's through Iron Valiant loops or targeting down the one that's in play. And if they try and set up a second one, you just Iron Valiant loop that one and then target the other back. So it's really hard for them to get a Baxcalibur going, and if they do, you can even just 2-2-2 into the Xianpao, right? So if you go first and you get that first knockout, you can just go for the 2-2-2 strategies. So then when we look at the supporters, Melony, obviously super important. That's your energy acceleration. Boss, also very, very important at making sure you get the right targets, especially when you're racing 2-2-2. Sometimes stuff's too bulky and you need to ping it down a little bit more, so bossing around it can be good. And like we said, disrupting people's setups is really key. The way I describe it in lots of matchups, disrupting their economy, or destabilizing their economy is the way I described it, of destroying Frigibacks, Charmanders, Pidgeys, Bidoofs, any of these kind of consistency cards, or cards that need to evolve through rare candy, like early Routes, early Curliers. You really want to take those out, and you've got a lot of tools to be able to do that. You've got big Pokemon that can take knockouts, early knockouts like your Suicune. You've got the Loop with the Medicham, all these kinds of things. So you really want to be trying to destabilize their board state as much as possible, and this is what this deck does best. Of course, you've got the Ball Search, 4 VIP, super key, 4 Ultra Ball, super good throughout the game. And I added in 2 Nest Ball just to try and increase the odds of hitting that early Squawk if you had to, or just a great way towards the end of the game to synergize with a Super Rod when you get important attackers back. We've got 9 energy. I've tried 8. I feel like 9 is better. I'm tempted to go back to trying 8 with 3 Earthen Vessel, which I had in the list that I shared on Twitter. I actually cut 1 Earthen Vessel for the Echoing Horn, but yeah, the 3, the 9 energy is super key, because sometimes you'll have 6, 7 energy in play, and so making sure you find it. You know, when you've got 2 Palkia, maybe a Suicune powered up, maybe you've got 2 Palkia and a Greninja powered up, maybe you've got a Medicham with the 2 energy still on it from earlier on, you often have 7 energy in play, and in those situations, you really can't be affording to have 1 prized or 1 still in the deck. And then you also really need it for your engine, right? Because you're using concealed cards, and Melony is such a key part of your engine. So you do have to try and make sure you've got plenty of water in the deck. So we got the 3 Trekking Shoes. Want to try and play 4, but I don't know what I'd cut for the 4th one. 4 Switch, 3 Escape Rope. I felt like we had too many switches, because like I said, it's a Palkia deck, not a Valiant deck. A lot of people would make the mistake with this list, and probably why not many people found this list was because they're trying to do too much switching. You only need a few switch to try and top that damage up. The Super Rod, like I said, really important. Heavy Ball, must have with so many one-offs. Echoing Horn, so this is the thing I added in off the back of the cup. Once you start playing against players who are better, who come in with a game plan against you, which you do find with regionals, cups, that kind of thing, in the best of 3 format, you really need something that can help modify the damage or punish people for certain Pokemon. So this is really good against something like a Charizard matchup, where if they do use an Entei, you can get it twice. If they do have 60 HP Pokemon, you can bring it back and loop it again. So the Echoing Horn can really set up a much better prize map for you, and it can also help modify your damage with either Palkia or Suicune to be able to top it up to that level that you need for the knockout. Lost Vacuum MVP, such a good card. I've even considered trying 2, but it was probably a bit too much. Great at getting rid of the tools so you can get those knockouts, but you can also use it to bump a PokéStop that stayed in play for a turn and double PokéStop in a turn, which is how I used it most often. So if other people are playing PokéStop, Lost Vacuum it after you use it, and then put your own PokéStop in play to get that double PokéStop off. And of course, getting rid of all the tools that you normally get rid of. Future Booster Energy Capsule. I tried getting rid of these at one point because obviously you can't get them off of PokéStop, so they're a bit frustrating. But they literally double the amount of pings you can get per game. Not quite, but definitely important to try and get one of these, maybe 2 onto your Valiants. But of course, if you don't have them, all you got to think about is you just got to retreat at some point during the chain of using the Valiant pings. So if sometimes you would use a Lumineon with 1 energy attached, a Squawk with 1 energy attached, or a Radiant Greninja with 1 energy attached as your first retreat, sometimes even the Medicham after you've used it on a Yoga Loop, and then that first retreat goes into the same amount of switch outs as if you had the Future Booster Energy. And then, of course, PokéStop, really important. And actually, one of the best things about being a PokéStop user is if your deck is built around it, like this one is, with having so many items, is watching other people use the PokéStop and mess up their own deck by discarding supporters, discarding Pokemon. So having that PokéStop in play with the amount of relentless pressure you're putting on, sometimes that can be your win condition, is making them mill important cards. Against a Roaring Moon, because I was keeping up with their speed at one point, they ended up milling most of their stadiums through having to PokéStop for everything. And because typically they play a stadium down, they then bump their own stadiums. But if I'm putting PokéStops in play, they're then going to be starting to use my PokéStops as well. And so to try and keep up with the pressure, they were often milling their own cards. So yeah, very important card in the deck, the PokéStop, and it works beautifully with the deck. And also you're fine discarding energy through it. And as you got the Pal Pad and Super Rod, you're actually fine a lot of the time milling your important Pokemon. And quite a few times, it's if you've got a Super Rod in your starting hand, you want to PokéStop before you Squawk and things like that. So there's definitely like some efficiency to this deck around which cards you play when. But I guess we'll get into a game, and this is where it's going to brick or something. But like I mentioned in my tweet, I didn't actually brick a single time in my 2 cups, which was crazy considering how much... Wait, that's the wrong Palk variant. This is the right one here. Considering how much it bricks online. I don't know if it's to do with the randomization on live, whether I got really lucky at the cups, but it just felt so consistent in person. So definitely something that I think in a best of 3 format is going to be the deck that is most consistent a lot of the time, and you're going to get your game plan out most of the time. So we'll see how this goes. I've not played PTCG Live as part of content, so apologies if I make lots of mistakes. But also let me know if you enjoy this kind of content. I'd love to get involved in doing more Pokemon content. Of course, you guys see me commentating the regionals, but don't typically record many videos. So hopefully you guys enjoy this. I didn't mention it actually, speaking of the coin flip here. You normally want to go second against most decks, and I think I want to explore going first against a few more. I think going first into Shem Pal, you're pretty safe because you can 2-2-2, or you can start focusing on looping. Going first into Gardevoir might also be a good option. And then I kind of want to see how it feels going first into some other evolving decks. So we'll see. But this looks like a really good first hand here, so hopefully we'll get a good game out of this. Okay, so we're up against Regis. I don't know what the game plan would be against Regis. I haven't played much of that. I think typically what I would do is try and just completely board wipe with some Valiant pings and a Greninja turn at some point, and just try and keep applying pressure with a Suicune until you set up the double knockout with the Greninja. Because you don't play any hand disruption, you definitely let other people play their game if they can. So you have to disrupt them through knocking out the most important Pokemon, right? And so with Regis, you just go down the typical route of just try and keep getting a knockout and making it as hard as possible. Of course, we'll be worried a bit about this, but as long as we've got a Palkia in the active, that won't be able to knock us out. Unless they play a Choice Belt. I don't know if Regis plays a Choice Belt these days. But they have got rid of a Luminous and a Lightning, so they are ready to attack with Regieleki once they get all set up. So definitely something to think about. It's also always a little bit worrying to put these kinds of Pokemon in play. But we might actually be able to... We don't really want to feed an Aqua Return in, but we might be able to do something like that. Okay, so we'll start off with the Pokemon. Really important to check your prizes. Like right here, for example, we don't have our Suicune. So that's going to stop us from getting that going second early attack off. We might even be able to Echoing Horn lock them at some point, which could be quite good fun. Then there's also... want to check these are in the deck because they're really important to make sure you can get as many pings off as possible. So what I'll probably do here, because we've got a few switch outs in our hand, get one of these Valiants down early, see what we get off of this. I believe an Ultra Ball would be all right here. Yeah, let's do it. So what I'm probably going to do here is I'm going to put this down. I'm going to Escape Rope into the Iron Valiant. And then right here, we'll probably get a ping onto the Regidrago right here. Because they're less likely to switch cart this. It's more likely to be the thing they want to leave in the active at the end of the turn. And we're going to Ultra Ball these two away here. And then get ourselves another Palkia down. Super Rod that Lumineon back in. Get that Squawkabilly. So that's where I mentioned earlier, the Super Rod in those starting hands can be super key to doing well. Because now we can guarantee the Melony here. So we'll just do that real quick. So this is why I think Lumineon's so good in the list. Opens up the access to the Melony. So obviously you can start to see where the weaknesses come in here. We're very ability reliant. We really do need those abilities. Luminous Sign. We need the concealed cards. I will put this down. Just continue the dig. Fortunately, losing the future booster energy. Always a bit annoying. I can go in the discard. We got that super rod back there. Right here, I might actually bump our stadium. I'm trying to think. Would it be it's beneficial for them because they might get rid of some energy? And they have quite a lot of items. So I'll probably just get rid of that here because I don't think there's any tools that we're particularly worried about. And then we will end our turn. They can attack with the Registeel into the Iron Valiant, but I guess if they get an attack off this next turn, I don't know if we've got much hope in this matchup anyway, because that means they're fully set up. So like right here, if they don't get fully set up and they leave that in the discard, we might be able to get an Echoing Horn, for example, and try and lock them out here. So that's another advantage to the Echoing Horn, but it looks like they're probably going to get set up pretty well. But yeah, we're very vulnerable to the Path to the Peak. It's one of the hardest things to deal with. We do have 4 PokéStop and a Vacuum. I mean, these guys could play Path to the Peak, so I might have screwed up by putting both the PokéStop and the Vacuum down. I'm not very familiar with this matchup, so maybe I'll get thrown off by that. But yeah, having outs to not getting done in by unfortunate Path to the Peak turns, it is definitely key, and that's how I won a lot of the matchups at the Cup, was holding on to that PokéStop, keeping as many in the deck as possible, often not even using the PokéStop if I had everything I needed, just so I didn't mill any more of them. But yeah, it looks like they're going to be attacking here with the Regieleki. Hopefully they don't get any Gust. Perfect, so that will set up my Palkias in range of the Regieleki. So we do have to be a bit worried about that now. Okay, so we've got the Palkia VSTAR here. We'll start off with the concealed cards. Try and draw into some more here. We're probably not going to need the Medicham. Could be useful into looping something so we can really disrupt their board. But I guess we can super rod that back in if we need to. So we'll get one more water discarded here. And probably the Escape Rope, I would say. Just because right now I don't think we want to be using that. So I'm going to go with this one. I'm going to save the Star Portal for now, just because we don't know how we're going to use it, whether we're going to use it on next turn or whether we'll go for the turn after. We'll see. But yeah, I think at this point we just got to keep swinging in and hope that we can survive for a few turns while they're struggling to set up, because their hand size is quite small here. I mean, they got the Dragon's Horde here to get themselves back up. If they switch cart this now, that would be a bit annoying, but yeah, it looks like they're just going to try and stall a little bit now. But this is the advantage we have. Like, Snorlax stall is one of our easiest matchups because we have so many switch outs, right? I mean, at this point, an Escape Rope would have been nice if they don't find the Regieleki here. Looks like they're getting all the squad back in. But you can see how this deck kind of works. Like, Suicune was prized here, so we weren't able to get that first turn knockout, but we would have been able to get a first turn Suicune attack off. And then otherwise, we're just trying to set up big Palkias and have the option for the Aqua Return or the Moonlight Shuriken, and then sometimes you'll need the Star Portal to power up your water attackers. But for the most part, you won't need that Star Portal for your Palkias and Suicune. You should be able to get it with Melonies and manual attachments. Okay, so they got the Reggie off of the prizes here. So they might just be attacking here with the Regidrago, which would make a lot of sense. And this is where that early ping damage Might be able to come in as we can hope that we'll find something, but we're a bit stuck here with not much going on with our hand right now, so it is a bit worrying. Maybe leaving that PokéStop in play was the right bet, because that would have given us more things to dig through. Okay, so we've got Iron Valiant here. I'm wondering whether going for the Lumineon is a good bet here, just because I can then put up the Iron Valiant. And they've only got, I've got the Metal and the Luminous there, so they would be able to attack with the Registeel now. I guess we could put the Greninja up. So I think I'm probably going to go here. Star Portal. For the Aqua return. And then we'll be able to put the Greninja up. It does take away taking 2 prizes in the same turn. But yeah, I think we kind of messed up by getting rid of that PokéStop and not sort of chaining resources a little bit better. But yeah, this is a matchup I'm less familiar with. And I think the fact that they're a Reggie deck that has a lightning attacker, you know, like Reggie decks do well into stuff that they can hit for weakness. And ultimately we are one of those things that they hit for weakness. So we are going to be struggling a little bit. The fact that Regieleki exists. Because they're a bit bigger, we can't do any of the kind of looping shenanigans. So I think this probably is a weaker matchup for us. But yeah, in terms of matchups, I guess the ones to look out for, of course, everyone's going to be talking about Miraidon. Now, Miraidon's not always going to be a loss. I think at the Cups, I played it twice. Both of them I drew. And I think in both instances, they could have been a win. I think the first one, there was definitely a moment where I gusted up a Flaffy and then could have potentially played around that for the rest of the game. But that wasn't so much the deck doing the work. That was just an anti-Miraidon strat. And then there was also the other one where I think I probably would have been able to win the final game, but we went to time. And because we both had 6 prize cards left, I need to go 2-2-2, whereas they could, in theory, go Iron Hands 3-3. So I just played defensively at that point. But I reckon had we started the chain of knockouts, I would have been able to just go 2-2-2 faster than they went 2-2-2. Of course, if the Iron Hands attacks at any point in that chain, then that swings it back into their favor if they can get a second Iron Hands off. But most of the time you can return KO and Iron Hands, as long as you start pinging it early and making sure that it does get knocked out afterwards. So it looks like we're in a bit of a sticky situation here. I will not lie to you. So I think, okay, now we don't have the Suicune. That does make things a little bit tougher. But I think it's literally just going to be a swing into the Regieleki and hope. Which right now I don't think is ever going to work because they've just got so much ready. But yeah, like I said, I think this is a tougher matchup. You're really targeting Xianpao, Charizard, Gardevoir and trying to destabilize them early. I think against Gardevoir, people will put Manaphy's out and that'll make it really tricky. And then you've got the Charizard matchup where you do tend to have 60 HP Pokemon a lot more often, which makes it easier, where Gardevoir, they can play around the 60 HP thing and never put a Mew in play or a memory skip routes. And then against Lost Box, you really just need to try and get the turn where you loop a Manaphy and then maybe get the Greninja attack off or get the Aqua return off to try and heal some damage to win a turn back. The big thing in that matchup, I really think, if it's Tina, you want to try and make sure Tinas don't get developed, and if they do, you need to start pinging them down and making it as hard as possible for them. Right, let's see what we can do here. So we've got the 1 prize remaining, and we have to somehow not let them get all the Reggies back. So let's see what we can do. Okay. Well, I probably should have put the Suicune forward, to be honest, because then I get an extra draw. The only thing I was thinking there is if we got an Ultra Ball, we might have been able to knock out something like the Regice or Regirock and hope that they only have one of them in their deck list. But right here, they're probably just going to replace this Regidrago straight away. And then knock us out with the Regieleki. So it is what it is. But yeah, well, I mean, we only saw one Melony this game, so we're a bit unfortunate with that. But yeah, with the Lost Box, there's multiple different ways you can take it. You have to be quite reactive with that one. If they don't put a Manaphy down, you go for a Greninja play to disrupt the come phase, sort of like any Greninja deck would. If they have a slow start, you just keep swinging in with Suicune and try and really put pressure on. And then if they do get a Manaphy down, you just sort of get that ready for a loop and then set them up that way. The other thing I feel like I've done quite a few times is I've set up Cramorants or Greninjas for loops, but it's always risky because of Switch Cart. Let's do one more game and talk about some of the matchups while we're doing it. But like I said, if they've got Giratina, if they've got any kind of big Pokemon, you definitely want to try and knock those out before they develop. And if they do, the Echoing Horn, the Iron Valiant, all the kind of things you can do to try and increase the damage output into a VSTAR, like a Giratina VSTAR, is key. And then, what else? I guess, what are the matchups are we thinking of? Goldengo can be pretty tough, because it's quite a big boy. 260 is quite hard, and they don't need to go wide in their bench. And also, Scizor destroys you because of so many abilities. But again, you just go with the same strategy of trying to disrupt their gimme ghouls before they get built up, especially if they've got 50 HP ones. Roaring Moon, when they don't have the Ancient booster, is quite easy, because if they knock out a Palkia, they put themselves down to 30 hit points. Boom, you get a loop. So you tend to have two strategies against that kind of thing. You'd have the one where you go 2-2-2 faster than they do, or the one where you go 2-2-2 second, but you know that the final two you can get the Yoga Loop off and then go into the second knockout. If they go wide, you're in a really good spot. If they don't, then you're not. The main thing with that is just making sure you get the Iron Valiant pings onto the chosen target. Right, this is a really exciting one here, because we're getting to see the power of the donk. So we have the Suicune. Pop that down. Get a Palkia down and a Squawk. So this would be a typical first turn. You wouldn't hopefully start with Lumineon, but you'd try and get these four down in your first turn, and then probably a Greninja would be the typical strategy. Seeing as we're not going to have a water energy here, we just have to discard that, unfortunately. Typical. So we won't attach that. Because of the fact that we're going to need it for our Melony afterwards. This is where having the Lumineon start can make things a little bit tougher. But, you know, doesn't matter. We found it anyway. Oh, classic. Show off the deck when it's working against the deck when it's not working. But you can see how you quickly, like, get set up here with all your stuffs. Yeah, see you later. Right, one more then, one more. But in terms of like the board wipe stuff, like I've got some anecdotal, very fun things that I've done, and like they happen a lot more than you might think. Against Shempal, I managed to Yoga Loop a Friggy into knocking out a Shempal, even though they only had one other bench Pokemon, because you get the Palkia and Valiant pings, you can get it into range. I've board wiped so many Guardy lists going second, where you Yoga Loop a Mew or a Memory Skip routes. Same thing with Charizard, you know, board wiping there. The advantage you've got now with the Echoing Horn added into the list from where I was playing it before is you can play into the decks that have a few 2 prizes by getting those back into play, like a Mew EX, a Squawk, or a Entei in Charizard's case, or a Zacian in This is why you don't play too many switch outs, because these are the kinds of hands that Valiant decks have. But like, we've literally only got 7 switch outs, and we've got 4 of them in our first hand, plus a Super Rod, plus an energy. But we're going to top deck Battle VIP Pass, and it's all going to be fine and dandy. And we'll just carry on, and we'll show you how great the deck is, right? Right, guys? Yeah, you can also do it against Mareeps for Miraidon. Like, there's so many targets to use the Medicham. But what I would say is generally go for the Suicune if you can. The only time you'd ever go for the Cham is if you've got the majority of the stuff in your starting hand. And you know that you're going to draw a load of cards. And then you might squawk it in that turn. Okay, yeah, well, this is chalked right here. Oh, nope. Genius. Genius. Oh, I just realized there's a path in play. Goes like that sometimes, doesn't it? You ever played a deck that relies on abilities and then the opponent goes path jam and says, can you do anything? Right, come on, let's have a proper game. We'll have a proper game to finish it off here. But yeah, let me know how you guys find the deck. If you do pick it up and try it out. If you try it at your locals, the best thing about decks like this, obviously it's now out there a little bit, but whenever I played it against anyone, they had no idea what I could do. People wouldn't put mana fees down because they didn't realize I could Greninja. People wouldn't think about the damage multipliers. I mean, I played against a very good player playing Lost Tina. So they were very good at benching, not only thinking about the Palkia, but thinking about the Valiants and how the Valiants were going to add a 20. And then if they put another bench Pokemon down with 2 Valiant pings and a Palkia attack, that would be enough, and so on. Now you've got the Echoing Horn to add on top of that. So good players will be able to play around it, but your average player at your local won't have a clue what you're doing and will be like, I've never seen these two together. So you can really have a lot of fun with that aspect of the game. So let me know how you get on with it playing against the locals. So here we haven't got a Squawk or a Lumineon. Honestly, I feel like this deck is mad when you play it on live. The prizes in the first hands. I don't know if you guys feel the same way about some of your decks. You feel like they just do weird stuff on live. So this would be one where if we were going to Squawk and seize our hand away, you'd discard the Palkia, use a Super Rod, that kind of thing. And when you've got a Super Rod in hand, it's much more comfortable going for the PokéStops. Probably just want to put those down and attach there. I should have probably attached the Suicune, to be honest, in hindsight, because if they gust up the Palkia now, we're screwed. But thankfully they got a Zapdos in the active, which is never ideal for them. So we shall end our turn there. This should hopefully make it harder for them to get the Raikou knockout. Oh no, they'll get the Raikou knockout anyway because of the Zapdos. So I probably could have not benched the Valiant and just put the Palkia down and then attached the Suicune. Again, it's like the deck is more big brain than I am as a player. So if you guys want to play it, just be aware that you will make a lot of mistakes just because the maths is so important all the time. How many bench Pokemon you have down is important. Avoiding Entei or Raikou damage is important because all of your Pokemon are kind of within that range. Typically, you'll put the Greninja up as a sacrifice a lot of the time, which can be quite rough because you need the Greninja for the draw. But if there's a deck that's going 2/2/2 like Miraidon or like Roaring Moon, it's very good to try and put the Greninja up to take a sacrificial hit. I did mention the Entei Valiant matchup. That can be tougher than you might think. In the same way Miraidon players might be thinking, I have yellow, you have blue, I win. The Entei matchup isn't as easy as I have blue, you have red, I win. You basically have to play that one really narrow just try and stick to Palkia, like a few Palkia, Suicune, and Ninja only. And then just attack into them. And then very typically in that one, you will use an Aqua Return into Entei because it allows you to get the damage onto it for the knockout. You can then put forward a Greninja. You can then put forward a Valiant if you have a Valiant down to take a hit. And then you reduce your bench size and you put the Lumineon back in. And I played Entei in the semi-finals at the Cup and did the Aqua Return. And the biggest thing about it was then you have Ball Search out to get the final supporter that you need for the game. So that's a big factor there. It can be really close compared to what you might think because ultimately you're just going 2-2-2. But where if they miss a knockout, they can just clean it up later, right? You don't disrupt them at all, so you can't play into Entei Valiant like most people normally would, which is where you try and disrupt their hands and destabilize what they're trying to achieve. You just have to accept it, and so, yeah, I would say just be aware of that and make sure when you play into it that you're being smart around the fact that Entei Valiant isn't just a free win, even though it's red versus blue. So this will be a good match here because we're going first. They haven't got a first turn knockout, it seems. Have they still got Squawk available? God, I see why people don't like doing live content because some people can be quite slow, can't they? They've not put an Iron Hands down, which, to be honest, I can understand, right? But yeah, at this stage, we should be able to just go 2-2-2 with them, assuming they don't get a knockout here. I mean, of course, we still have to be able to get boss's orders, which will be quite tricky here, probably. So we have Dios. I mean, at this stage, I might just go Greninja, knock out Mareep, get damage on the Zapdos, ready for a potential Yoga Loop later, right? And then that way we might get a prize. So let's give that a try. This is, of course, quite risky because we're using our Star Portal early. We're not powering up our Suicune and everything for it. But one of the big things right now is that they have a Zapdos in the active, which is not ideal. Which they're going to have to retreat out the active, which is not ideal for them. So maybe we'll be able to get it. We can also clean it up later, try and get a Yoga Loop on it later maybe. But yeah, of course, Squawk and Lumineon both prize this game. Like, honestly, I didn't brick a single game at the Cup. Didn't have a single problem at the Cup. Like, I motored through my deck every game. And then I come home and I go onto live. And I've had so many bricky first hands. So many, like, oh my god, 3 or 4 of my Pokemon are prize. I had a game in at the, I think it was the first Cup, where Suicune, Palkia V-STAR were all prized. But then it was still fine, right? I still managed to play out the game. So I don't know. Maybe it's just because you play so many more games on live. Maybe it's the randomization. Maybe it's something else. But it does just feel a lot more bricky. This morning, actually, I played against a Miraidon player 3 times in a row. And the first 2 games, both times, they had a Zapdos in one. And then they had a Mareep in the other in the active and just passed. So it does happen, but let's check that forward. Probably should have shut that forward. In hindsight. So they put a basic down, they now can get the knockout. But I kind of want the Valiant for a retreat ping if possible, but probably won't happen now that I've done that. Yeah, so I probably should put the Valiant forward. Again, just so many things to think about. But yeah, this person is playing very slowly. So we'll get the games through. And also put some questions down below in the comments. Let me know what you want to know about the deck. Or on the tweet, I put all my matchups there and the things that I've tried. I've tried so many different lists. I've tried some that a little bit more spicy. Like I used to play a Thornton. That was quite spicy, but didn't come off enough. It was quite good at getting rid of Squawks in play and putting in like the Medicham or the Valiants. I've tried more Earthen Vessels. I've tried more switch outs. I've tried cross switches. I tried a collapse. I've tried all these different things. To be honest, this is my favorite of the lists. Surely they put another basic down. Surely they put another basic down. They've got a tandem unit. They must know, right? They must know. Come on. There we go. Oh my goodness. Yeah, there's been quite a lot of the games where you just get away with the most dumb things because people don't know how to play into it. But yeah, on this occasion they've worked it out. But yeah, I tried lots of different stuff. I tried no Suicune, tried 2 Suicune. At the end of the day, the deck is consistent enough to work. So therefore, I am happy with it. Okay. I think we will try this first rather than the concealed cards. Okay, all of our energy is gone. That is fine. Let's put that and some energy back in. I think right here we just retreat into a knockout and hope that we are able to get a Lumineon off the prizes or Melony off the top of the deck or something like that to be able to get the Suicune as our next attacker. Genius. But yeah, it would have been nice there to get a switch to get the Zapdos in range. If the PokéStop remains here, we should be in a good spot to be able to switch, get the Zapdos going. They could very easily disrupt our hand. Like I said, we're very susceptible to path. We're very susceptible to hand disruption. Most of the time, we try and blitz through our deck as fast as possible to the point where hand disruption won't do too much because we've got so few cards left in our deck. But of course, it's not always in your control. You gotta just go for it sometimes. And it tends to be against the decks that have their own PokéStops. Or some of the evolving decks which take a bit longer that you tend to blitz through your deck. So you definitely, and Lost Box as well, of course, because they don't disrupt your hand early on normally. So a lot of matchups you do just get to the bottom of your deck. I actually decked myself out against a Miraidon and lost the game where I probably should have won. But that's my fault. So yeah, you do have to be careful about decking yourself out. But that's where you often deck yourself out with a Super Rod or Pal Pad in hand and dictate exactly what you'll get off of an Iono. And if they Roxanne you, you've got so few cards in hand that you should be fine. But yeah, this seems to be a Miraidon struggling a bit. They've Arvened there as well, so we will keep our hand here. They've fully benched as well because they don't know how to play around what we're playing. So if they attack with Miraidon, we've just got to fill out our bench and then we can attack with Suicune, hopefully. But we'll probably want to get Suicune into the active. Medicham onto the bench. Lumineon for the Melony onto the Medicham. Try and get a water. Hopefully get a switch as well. And then go from there, really. So we'll see if we can get the sexy finish that we desire here. God. Finally. Right, here we go. You ready for a sexy finish? This has been the best thing about the deck is when it goes, it looks good, right? Like it plays well. Okay. First off, Cham. Down you go. Next up, Lumineon. Down. because we want the switch out. We need the switch out, so we have to get this first. Again, like, we haven't had a Melony this game, right? This is crazy. Trekking Shoes. We don't need that because we've already got one in hand. Okay. Because we got the Palkia there, we can discard... I think we fleet-footed next. Okay, so we've got the switch out, so we've got the loop here. Next, last thing we want to do... We kind of want to get a baby Palkia in play, right? So, probably just do this first. Okay, they're gone, that's fine. If we do this, 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 get a baby Palkia down. Here's hoping we get a water energy. Maybe if we super rod first. Get those back in. Get as much water as possible into the game. Fingers crossed. Never punished. We get that. Conceal cards. We've got the Melony for next turn. So now we go switch. Iron Valiant. Ping here. Retreat. Yoga Loop. Beautiful. And then now we just go, we discard these two, get a Palkia, evolve the Palkia, Melony. I just want to show the kind of level of gas that you can get. Oh, I didn't need to do that. Conceal cards, I didn't realize we had two in hand. Trekking Shoes. No, we don't need that. My goodness. PokéStop. Gosh, Earthen Vessel. My goodness. And then we just switch into this. And then if they've not got a bench Pokemon and you need to get an extra ping on the active, you can just do that. Pop that down. Retreat. Sorry for the BM at the end. I was just trying to give an example of what turns can feel like sometimes. But yeah, there we go. That's the deck beating Miraidon. Of course, they were bricking a little bit. It happens. But let me know what you thought of the video. Let me know if you wanted me to do more videos like this. I have a few other spicy lists that I've been working on. You probably saw them when I was choosing my deck earlier. I found a lot of success with Lost Scissor and Moon Lost Box have been my main decks I've been playing outside of the Iron Valiant. I formed an Arctoad before we saw an Arctoad do well on the ladder, and a few various Lost Box lists. So yeah, I've been cooking, but it seems like Iron Valiant's the one for me that's done well. So let me know if you want to see any more decks, and of course support the channel. I don't know where this is going out yet. I said I'll probably try and put it on a channel somewhere. So whatever channel this is on, subscribe, and I hope you have more videos on here.